Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is lecture number 36. The name of the paper is Literary Criticism 1. The name of the book is On the Sublime by Longinus. The topic is the sources of sublimity. There are 5 sources of sublimity. So far, we have discussed 3 sources. The first one was the power of form and grand conception. The second, intense passions and emotions. The third, figures, that is, figures of speech. And today we'll discuss the fourth source of sublimity, and that is diction. This lecture is specifically for the students of BS English 5th semester GDC PABI, and it is also for the students of those colleges which are affiliated with Abdul Wali Khan University. Diction, which is the fourth source of sublimity, refers to the choice of words and how the words are arranged. So it refers to choosing the words. The proper words are chosen for writing poetry, poetic drama, etc. And the arrangement of words is also important to give good impression. So diction refers to the choice of words and the arrangement of words. Both are important for poetry because in poetry the right word is used at the right place. And when we say the right word, that refers to the choice of words, and the right place refers to the arrangement of words. Thoughts are in our head, in our brain, and they remain there unless we use words to express those thoughts which are in the darkness of our head. Therefore, it is said that words actually serve as a light for our thought because they reveal our thought and they manifest our thought. Thought is brought to light from darkness with the help of words. As thought is inside the brain, it cannot be seen unless it is expressed with the help of words. So, therefore, words are important in order to express our thoughts. It is said that there is a relationship between thoughts and words, and that is correct because if thought is great, words automatically would become great and weighty, and an ordinary thought will be expressed in ordinary words and commonplace words. So, this thought should be in harmony with the words used for it. If an ordinary thought is expressed in great words, then there would be a kind of disharmony and that would not look proper. We know that thought cannot be great persistently and consistently. There is often rise and fall in the thought. Sometimes the thought is ordinary and sometimes it is great. So, when the thought is an ordinary thought, then the words used must be ordinary. Otherwise, it would look ridiculous to express an ordinary thought in great words and strong words. It would be, to use a metaphor, it would be just like wearing the mask of Oedipus on the face of a child. Now, a child is someone who is innocent, while these are great characters Agamemnon, Creon, and Oedipus in the Grecian time. They used to wear masks so that they would be visible to the people who are sitting or standing quite away from the place where the drama is played. So, therefore, if you express an ordinary thought in great words, that would be just like wearing the mask of Oedipus or Agamemnon or Creon on the face of a child, and that would not be proper. So, there would be a kind of disharmony If the thought is not great, then the words should also be not great. Then the arrangement of words and the command over words, that is not a very big problem because this is something which is external. The sublimity must be there, and then the command over words and the arrangement of words would give a help to creating more sublimity. But if sublimity is not there, it cannot be created only with the help of command over words and command over the arrangement. It's just a minor problem, and the most important thing is the thought. So a great thought would make the poetry of a poet sublime. Even slang expressions are allowed, and slang expressions have place in literature. If the thought expressed is a minor one or a familiar one, then even slang is acceptable. You know, slang is the use of words which are very informal, and even common speech. In common speech, they're used these phrases which are used in common speech are not in writing, and these phrases which are restricted to particular context or to particular group. For example, uh, the actors and actresses, they use a specific slang which is not understood by the other people, and the same is the case with those belong to different professions. If they use a specific language which is not understood by all the people, even that is allowed and it has place in literature if it is similar to the thought expressed. So there should be harmony between the thought and the words which express the thought. Or sometimes, as Longinus tells us, the language of a peasant can sometimes convey more than the critic of his age. The sentence means that peasants speak simple language while critics are educated and then they speak difficult words. They talk in grand style, but sometimes even a peasant can express with the help of a simple language, which even the critic of the age would feel difficulty to explain and to express. So, therefore, there is a place for simplicity, but it should be in harmony with the thought. Metaphor is also the part of diction, and we know that um, if we want to describe an ordinary experience, then our language is very direct. Um, for practical purposes, prose is important, which is the direct type of language, and it is appropriate with for practical situations and for practical demands of life. Direct language, prose is used, not poetry. Poetry comes into play when we are emotional and when we are full of passions. When we become emotional and full of passions, it becomes natural for us to use metaphorical language and to talk in a way which is used in poetry. If we take the example of Keats, Keats, for example, read the book. The name of the book was Chapman's Homer. Chapman talked about Homer, and it was for the first time that Keats came to know about Homer and his beautiful poetry. He Keats wanted to convey that experience in direct language, but as he was emotional, that he had found out the best type of poetry, and it was for the first time that he was reading. Therefore, he could not express himself in direct language, in prose, and he became metaphorical. This happened because he was emotional about the poetry of Homer, and he was emotional about the fact that he has discovered the Greek writer. Therefore, he spoke these lines, which are part of the poem, of this poem, Chapman's Homer. He says, much have I traveled in the realms of gold. The realms of gold don't refer to the countries which are made of gold, and traveling is not that journey which is the real journey. Traveling here refers to the reading of the poems. Realms of Gold are the poems which he read, written by Homer and by other Greek writers, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. The states and the kingdoms refer to the different poems written by wonderful writers, poets, which he read. Round many western islands have I been. So you can see that he became emotional, and the words he is using are not used in their real meaning. Traveling, travel is not used in its real meaning. It is used in the meaning of reading. The same is the case with the realms of gold and states and kingdoms. So it is inevitable in this case, as he has become emotional and passionate. It is now compulsory to convey it in such a language. So therefore, we say that the language of poetry is metaphorical, and it is different from the language of science. The language of science is direct, because if you speak indirectly, that is metaphorically in poetry, poetic language, and if you are not using prose, which is direct, logical, exact, and clear, then people would not understand what the scientist is talking about. Therefore, he talks directly. But to express a poetic truth, the language becomes metaphorical and poetic. To express scientific truth, the language becomes factual language, and both of them are then in harmony. Keats, in these particular lines from Chapman's Homer, which is the name of a poem, he uses metaphors, and these words are used in different meanings, different from the dictionary meaning. If you find the meaning of state in dictionary, that is a country, but the meaning of state here is the poem, which is different. So in this case, you say one thing and you mean another thing. He is not talking about going to such places. He is also not talking about the kings of the states, but he is talking about great books written by great writers. So, realms of gold means poetry, and poems are compared with states, kingdoms, and islands. Keats' reading was not like our reading of Homer, because when we read Homer, we do not become passionate for finding out such great poetry, but he became passionate about poetry, and therefore the use of metaphors was justified. So, if you are not passionate, then the use of metaphors is not justified, as passions were aroused. Um, Therefore, the use of metaphors was justified in the case of Keats, and it is a general rule that the use of metaphors would be justified when passions are aroused and when writer is imaginatively alive. Critics of that time, when Longinus lived, they prescribed rather, some rules for metaphors, and they also talked about how many should be used. But Longinus takes these rules as mechanical, and he does not agree with this, that there should be any rules for using metaphors, because he tells us that when a man is moved by strong emotions, when he becomes very emotional, because he is experiencing something great, then he is bound to become metaphorical, and he would not find any time for counting how many should be used, and he doesn't even know if he is using them, because metaphors would come naturally to him, and that would be the language of passions and emotions. And if there are no passions, metaphors are not required and they should not be used. Literature as we know, it deals with the great thoughts and deep experiences, and these experiences are full of emotions. Therefore, great literature is written in metaphorical language. Longinus, therefore, doesn't describe any rules for using metaphors. He gives examples from the speeches of Demosthenes, as we are now familiar with Demosthenes. He was an orator and a very good orator, a natural speaker, though not very highly educated, but even then a great speaker. तो ये अब आप उर्दू में सुन लें। ये अभी हमने जो पढ़ा, ये चौथा सोर्स था सब्लिमिटी का, और हमने 3 सोर्सेस पहले पढ़ी हैं, 5 हम पूरी करेंगे सोर्सेस ऑफ सब्लिमिटी। एक हमने पावर ऑफ फॉर्मिंग ग्रैंड कंसेप्शन, जिसका मतलब इमेजिनेशन है, ये पढ़ा। और नेक्स्ट हमने इंटेंस पैशंस एंड इमोशंस पढ़ा, और ये दोनों ये नेचुरल गिफ्ट हैं। इसके अलावा जो 3 है, 5वां भी हमने नहीं पढ़ा, फिगर्स हैं, डिक्शन है और नेक्स्ट है कंपोजिशन। ये तीनों नेचुरल गिफ्ट नहीं है, ये प्रैक्टिस के जरिए और नॉलेज के जरिए आप गेन कर सकते हैं। आज का जो लेक्चर था ये डिक्शन के बारे में था, और डिक्शन से मुराद अल्फाज का चुनाव और अल्फाज का अरेंजमेंट है। वर्ड्स जो है ये हमारे थॉट्स को एक्सप्रेस करते हैं, जिस तरह अंधेरे में टॉर्च एक्सप्रेस करता है और दिखाता है चीज़ों को, तो हमारा थॉट भी अंधेरे में होता है, जहन में होता है, उसको एक्सप्रेस करने के लिए हम वर्ड्स इस्तेमाल करते हैं। और वर्ड्स में और थॉट में एक ताल्लुक है और होना चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर थॉट ग्रेट है तो अल्फाज ऑटोमेटिकली ग्रेट बनेंगे, और अगर थॉट ऑर्डिनरी है तो अल्फाज को ऑर्डिनरी होना चाहिए। और ये भी हकीकत है कि लगातार थॉट ग्रेट नहीं हो सकता, राइज और फॉल इसमें होता है। लिहाजा जब राइज और फॉल हो थॉट में, तो फिर राइज और फॉल होना चाहिए वर्ड्स में भी। अगर वर्ड्स ऑर्डिनरी थॉट ऑर्डिनरी है तो वर्ड्स ऑर्डिनरी, अगर थॉट ग्रेट है तो वर्ड्स ग्रेट होने चाहिए। और अगर आप ऐसे नहीं करते और आम सोच है और आप बड़े अल्फाज इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, तो इसका मतलब इसी तरह है कि आप इडिपस एगामेम्नन और क्रेयन का मास्क पहना रहे हैं एक बच्चे को। पुराने ज़माने में जब यूनानी इडिपस वगैरह का ड्रामा करते थे, तो वो चूंकि ये एक बड़े खुले मैदान में रखा जाता था, तो इस वजह से लोगों को नजर नहीं आता था एक्टर, तो वो मास्क पहनते थे जिससे आवाज भी तेज हो जाती थी और बंदा नजर भी आता था। तो ये मास्क इडिपस और एगामेम्नन और क्रेयन वगैरह पहनते थे। अगर हम ऐसी सोच को जो कम गहरी है बड़े बड़े अल्फाज में जाहिर करेंगे, तो इसकी मिसाल होगी कि इडिपस का मास्क आप किसी बच्चे को पहना दें। और ये कोई बड़ा मसला नहीं है कि आप कमांड हासिल करें वर्ड्स पर और अरेंजमेंट पर, क्योंकि ये मेहनत के जरिए हो सकता है। तो ये माइनर प्रॉब्लम है। जो असल चीज है वो है थॉट। थॉट ग्रेट होगी तो सब्लिमिटी होगी, थॉट ग्रेट नहीं होगी तो वर्ड्स का चॉइस और अरेंजमेंट आपको सबलाइम नहीं बनाएगा। यहाँ तक कि स्लैंग एक्सप्रेशन भी काम कर जाते हैं, और अगर ये थॉट के मुआफिक हो। स्लैंग एक्सप्रेशन वो है जो बहुत इनफॉर्मल हो और जो आम स्पीच में इस्तेमाल किए जाए, न कि राइटिंग में, और ये किसी खास ग्रुप के हवाले से बोले जाते हैं। मसलन अगर को डाकू आपस में बात कर रहे हैं तो उनका एक किस्म की ज़ुबान होगी, अगर शरीफ लोग बात कर रहे हैं तो उनकी दूसरी किस्म की ज़ुबान होगी। तो ये किसी ख़ास प्रोफेशन से रिलेटेड अगर कोई ज़बान हो तो ये स्लैंग कहलाता है, लेकिन ये इनफॉर्मल होता है और इनकी भी जगह है लिटरेचर में। लेकिन अगर थॉट اس کے موافق ہو تب. تو کبھی کبھار جیسے ہمیں لانجائنس بتاتا ہے، ایک کسان جس کی زبان سادہ ہے ایک کرٹک سے زیادہ اہم مطلب ہمیں اپنے سادہ الفاظ میں سمجھا سکتا ہے. میٹافر بھی یہ ڈکشن کا ذریعہ ہے، اور عام طور پر جو عام ایکسپیرینس ہے اس کے لیے تو پروز استعمال کرتے ہیں. پروز کو ڈائریکٹ لینگویج کا نام دیا جاتا ہے، اور ڈائریکٹ لینگویج پریکٹیکل سچویشن کے لیے، پریکٹیکل ڈیمانڈز آف لائف کے لیے مناسب ہے. لیکن ایموشنل اور پیشنیٹ بات کے لیے میٹافوریکل لینگویج استعمال کی جاتی ہے. مثلاً اگر آپ کیٹس کی نظم پڑھیں چیپمینز ہومر، تو اس نے چیپمینز ہومر پڑھا. چیپمین شخص کا نام ہے، اس کی کتاب ہے، اس میں اس نے ہومر کو پڑھا اور اس کو پہلے مرتبہ ہومر دریافت ہوا. اس دریافت کو وہ ملک ان کے دریافت کے ساتھ کمپیئر کرتا ہے اور وہ میٹافوریکل بن جاتا ہے، اور وہ یہ تین پوری نظم بولتا ہے جس میں سے ہم نے یہ 3 لائنیں سلیکٹ کی ہیں. اب اس نے ہومر کی پوئٹری جب پڑھی تو بہت ایموشنل ہوا، جذباتی ہوا، اور اس نے میٹافوریکل لینگویج استعمال کر کے یہ نظم لکھی. سائنس کی لینگویج یہ ڈائریکٹ ہوتی ہے، یہ پروز میں ہوتی ہے، لاجیکل اور ایگزیکٹ اور کلیئر. لیکن جو پوئٹک ٹروتھ ہے اس کو ایکسپریس کرنے کے لیے ہمیں میٹافوریکل لینگویج بولنی پڑتی ہے، اور سائنٹیفک ٹروتھ کے لیے فیکچوئل لینگویج، کیونکہ تھاٹ ڈیفرنٹ ہے. تو کیٹس نے بھی میٹافرز استعمال کیے. آپ کو یہ ڈکشنری میں میننگ نہیں ملیں گے، کیونکہ واقعی وہ ٹریول اس نے نہیں کیا ہے، بلکہ ٹریول سے مراد یہاں ریڈنگ بکس ہیں، نہ وہ بادشاہوں سے ملا ہے، اور نہ اس نے اسٹیٹس کو ڈسکور کیا ہے، بلکہ اس نے پوئمز کو ڈسکور کیا ہے. اور ریلمز آف گولڈ سے مراد پوئٹری ہے، اور اسٹیٹس اور کنگڈمز اور آئلینڈ سے مراد پوئمز ہیں. اور یہ اس لیے اس نے کیا ہے کہ یہ پیشنیٹ تھا پوئٹری کے بارے میں، لہٰذا اس نے اس کا استعمال میٹافرز کا جسٹیفائڈ ہے، صحیح ہے. اس زمانے کی کرٹکس جس میں لانجائنس رہا تھا، ان کا خیال یہ تھا کہ میٹافرز کے استعمال کے لیے خاص رولز ہیں، وہ فالو کرنے چاہیے، اور میٹافرز کتنے ہونے چاہیے یہ بھی رول میں شامل ہوگا. لانجائنس اس کو میکینیکل سمجھتا ہے اور اس بات کا حامی نہیں ہے، بلکہ اس کے مطابق اگر ایموشن سٹرانگ ہوں گے، ایکسپیرینس گریٹ ہوگا، تو مجبوراً آپ کو میٹافوریکل لینگویج استعمال کرنی پڑے گی، اور اگر ایسا نہیں ہے تو پھر میٹافرز کی ضرورت نہیں ہے. تو لینگویج میٹافرز جو ہے یہ پیشن اور ایموشن کی لینگویج ہے. جب پیشنز نہ ہوں گے تو میٹافرز کی ضرورت نہیں ہوگی. لٹریچر چونکہ بڑے بڑے تھاٹس ایکسپریس کرتا ہے تو آپ کو میٹافورک بننا بنتا ہے، اور لانجائنس اس کے کوئی رولز ہمیں نہیں بتاتا. وہ ڈیماستھینس کی سپیچز سے مختلف ایگزامپلز دیتا ہے. تو یہ ہمارا لیکچر ہوا ڈکشن کے بارے میں، جو کہ چوتھا سورس ہے سبلیمٹی کا. تو یہ 4 ہو گئے، 5 سورسز ہم کمپلیٹ کریں گے. تھینک یو اینڈ گڈ لک.